I've been watching the show for maybe 10 years now. I really appreciate what you guys. And my question is something you've said before that religious people see it shouldn't be called stupid or dumb. It's their belief that dissonant, cognitive dissonance.
Oh, hello?
Every time my phone goes to lock screen, we lose my voice. I have to pay attention to that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So if we use the same standard for anything else that is not religious belief, we would call someone stupid for believing irrational things. But with religious beliefs, we hold back on that. And I wonder why.
Well, I think Paul and I were getting
Go
ready to
ahead,
say
Matt.
exactly the same thing, so you do it.
Well, I wouldn't call someone stupid who believes in flat earth or QAnon or any number of things that I consider to be false or to be or crystals or like I was a theist up until just a few years ago, 5 years ago or so. I still believed all that stuff. And I didn't get one IQ point smarter when I stopped believing. What I got was new information and some of the faulty ways I was thinking were corrected and I learned a better epistemology. But I do not consider the people who have less information or faulty epistemology to be stupid. So I would not do that. It's not constructive to conversations. And so I guess it's just I don't buy the premise necessarily. And while I've seen people on both sides of any argument call the other stupid, I don't know that people necessarily advocate for that. So I'm not buying the premise necessarily. And I'll let Matt carry on to see if that was what he was fun to say.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat. While I'm sure that I have in fact called someone stupid or dumb at some point for believing something that's irrational, I tend to reserve that for when they believe something that they're advocating for that is harmful and problematic. Not merely, hey, I have a belief that somebody thinks is wrong. And the reason that I generally suggest that we don't do that, even if I have broken my own rule at some point, is that, well, it's similar to what Paul was saying. My IQ didn't go up when I stopped believing either. As a matter of fact, it's gone down because we know that it does that over time. But it's really about strategic thinking in a way. And that is, there are lots of things that I can say to someone who has an irrational set of beliefs. I have no problem at all pointing out that their beliefs are irrational, that their beliefs are harmful, that their beliefs may be viewed as stupid, dumb, as a colloquialism. But that doesn't mean that I'm assessing the person, because the truth is, I have never met anyone in my entire life who's incapable of being wrong and being stupidly wrong, like wrong about in a way where people might tend to call it stupid. I've done tons of stupid things. I did stupid things this morning. And by that, I mean, not just in the sense of believing something irrational, but making a serious error when I ought to know better, when I do know better. I sliced my hand open with my pressure washer a couple weeks ago because in haste and wanting to, hurry through the task, I just raised up the tub that I was cleaning and then raised up the pressure washer to get a stubborn little spot. And my hand just slipped. Why on earth would you, it's like, why would you aim a gun at somebody just playing around? That sort of thing is stupid. And that's what I tend to view is this sort of dangerous, careless, not just, I believe there's a God or I believe in ghosts or I believe in astrology or whatever else. I have friends and family members who have all kinds of absolutely ridiculous, irrational beliefs, but they as a person aren't necessarily stupid for believing them, which is why I would generally avoid saying that.
Got, gotcha. But my question is, so I'll use the example you did for the pressure washer where you cut your hand by putting it in front of it. I will assume that you will probably not repeat the same act willingly. It might happen in an accident, but I don't think you will do the same thing over and over again because you know the outcome of it. So I'll take an example of the virgin birth. We know well enough human biology and our reproduction system, how it all works. For me, I'll call it stupid just for the sake of the argument. For me, it's really stupid for any woman who understands the biology of their own body, who every month have nature stating to them how their biology works, to believe in a virgin birth. For me, that is the definition of stupid. You have the evidence being rubbed in your face every month for how your biology works, but you still believe in something that does not align with that reality. In my vision, that's what I call, maybe I'm
Well,
wrong there.
okay. So first of all, it seems, let me make sure that I'm understanding what you're saying. You're saying that a woman who's constantly reminded of how her body works would be stupid to believe that a virgin birth is possible.
Yes.
How did you determine that a virgin birth is impossible? Because we have observed it in reptiles and at least, if I may be mistaken, but at least in one instance in mammals. And so, in addition, the virgin birth isn't saying, hey, parthenogenesis occurred through a normally natural process. It's claiming that a God who can create life made someone pregnant. What about a woman's body makes it stupid to believe that God could do that?
Taking into that root, God can do anything according to the Bible and the dogmas and everything. I would scrap that because not I believe none of us believes in that. If we use our own biology and as far as we understand our own reproduction system, our species is unable to reproduce without a partner, as far as we know.
Well, see, that's the thing. As far as we know, first of all, as I was just saying, you haven't proven that parthenogenesis is impossible, but the Bible story isn't advocating for parthenogenesis. It's advocating for a miracle. Now, I don't believe that it happened, but I think it's a mistake to claim that it's not possible. And if you're going to engage in arguments with apologists, if your position is miracles are simply not possible, then there's nothing they can ever say that will prove it. And what you've done is you've demonstrated that you don't have an understanding of epistemology that would allow you to become convinced if they were to present evidence for it. You've determined that because we haven't demonstrated X is possible, that means that X is impossible. And that's a fallacious line of reasoning. Why isn't that stupid? I don't hear anything. Oh my
Pedro's
gosh.
phone may have gone on lock.
We seem to completely lost Pedro. Well,
Uh-oh.
let's you and I continue hashing this out since we've lost
Well,
Pedro. We've got other callers
so
waiting.
one thing you say, hey, Matt, do you think it's reasonable that a crayfish gives birth? A virgin crayfish can give birth. And you would say, not up until 2018, but now there's a
There you go.
species in Germany that just clones itself every generation. It's called the marbled crayfish. And it's all females, and it's every member of that species is a clone of the other.
Yeah, there are
So
a
there's,
number of lizards that do that
yeah,
that I want. There was someone who was selling a collection of parthenogenic lizards, and I reached out to her and I was like, I was going to buy like 4 or 5 of them, just set up a colony and have them around all the time and be able to talk about them every time something like this comes up.
so if you were ever going to X-Men land or whatever, like it's not necessarily inconceivable that Mary had a mutation, this same mutation that we've seen in other animals, and that didn't get carried on because Jesus didn't have kids, But it's not implausible. So it's a weird angle to take. But also, like, why does he want to call people stupid? Like, I guess if you just want to have permission from us to call people stupid, go ahead and pull your boots and whatever arbitrary criteria you want to use to call people stupid, go ahead.
Yeah,
We're in the
it's like
business of changing people's minds, though, I guess, right? So,
yeah, and I've screwed up many times. And here's the thing: to me, what really count. I've already talked about what really counts is stupid. I have friends who engage in these sorts of discussions quite a lot, and some of them are like, so and so, such and such apologist is lying, and I know they're lying because I've already explained this to them, and they're just
yeah.
denying it. But there's a difference between that person isn't convinced and that person is lying. I'm much freer with pointing out when people are being dishonest in conversation now, including calling them out for a lie that they've been caught in, not as an assessment of somebody's entire character, but because I think there's stuff that needs to be called out. I could sit here and have I could sit here till at least midnight taking calls and having conversations. And as long as we're all actually saying, here's what I think and why, I got no problem with it. It doesn't matter how stupid I think. I prefer to look at it like an idea is stupid only when it's as I was saying, like harmful, or it would absolutely be stupid of me to cut myself with the pressure washer again in the exact same way that I'd done it. And it could happen, but it also could be that maybe I do it accidentally, or I develop some sort of mental aberration that just makes me careless, or it results in the same thing. And that wouldn't make it stupid. People with Alzheimer's aren't stupid.
Right. Yeah, you're advocating in a way that the Einsteinian definition of insanity is probably closer to stupidity. The idea that if you keep making the same mistakes and expecting different results, that might be stupid. But again, people who are completely convinced, like his arguments against the virgin birth there, it's funny we had to put our Jesus hats on there for a minute, but good grief, it's not incoherent in the worldview.
Somebody in chat, and we'll get to another caller in a minute. Somebody in chat, let me go back and actually try and read this so that we can address it. And it was, aren't miracles impossible by definition? Because if they were possible, they wouldn't be miracles. So really, is there any point in talking about the rationality of miracles when miracles defy reason? My take is the miracles aren't impossible because they violate the laws of nature. They're just an example. Now, granted, I haven't seen a miracle. I don't know that a miracle has ever occurred. But if you say miracles can't happen because they violate nature or reason or rationality, then you're saying that nothing could ever violate nature. So you're default declaring there's nothing supernatural. There are no gods. Nothing can violate this. And I don't know how you demonstrate that, because I have no way to properly investigate to determine whether or not a miracle is possible or not. What needs to happen is somebody who claims that a miracle has occurred needs to actually present evidence and data so that we can evaluate it and say, you know what? We have this understanding about how reality works. And just to make it easy, our understanding is that a round piece of bread does not turn into human flesh. We have no confirmed examples of this happening, no mechanism that could show how it could happening. There's no known natural mechanism by which a cracker can turn into human tissue, or God human tissue, who knows? That doesn't in any way demonstrate that it cannot happen by means that we aren't aware of. You don't get to rule out everything that you don't know and don't have an example of and just say, oh, that's impossible. Possibility needs to be demonstrated, as does impossibility. And so if you want to say it's not possible for this cracker under any circumstances to turn into human tissue, now you've got some work ahead of you. In the meantime, the burden of proof is on the people who are claiming that cracker does transubstantiate into specifically the human genetic material of Jesus of Nazareth. I don't know how they could ever demonstrate that, because even if it turned into human tissue, how would you know it was Jesus's human tissue? Do we have a DNA sample from back then? And my favorite joke about all that is, which part of Jesus does it turn into? Is it like a toenail or foreskin, or
Which part is most palpable? Yeah, yikes.